you saw the title, hear me out. People have been very patient with Patrick Rothfuss. Much like his cousin, George R. R. Martin, it has been 11 years since the second book in the King Killer Chronicles was released. And the promised next book is nowhere to be seen. But that's not a scam. No, the scam happened just recently, where fans donated money under the promise that Rothfuss would release a chapter of the next book, The Doors of Stone. He explicitly promised this, and many fans paid him under the premise that he would keep his word. And yet it isn't here. What makes all this even more interesting though is that his own editor thinks that he might not have written anything at all. We'll talk about that in a minute though. But in order to understand all of this, we have to start at the beginning. Back in December of 2021, Rothfuss did an end of the year livestream as he does every year, with various contribution goals and donations. But this time, he became a bit more ambitious. He was playing Minecraft, yes, the best game, and decided that if they reached their goal of $350,000 before he beat the Ender Dragon, well then he would be reading the prologue of his next book. He would be sharing pages of a comic he'd been working on, and this is the important one, he'd be releasing a chapter of the upcoming book, The Doors of Stone, presumably the first chapter. Not only did he not follow through with this, he also doubled the contribution goals, and many of these he didn't follow through with either. These were things like writing a 10-minute short story live on Twitch and assembling the Geek Avengers to read the infamous chapter. People paid him a lot of money, and in exchange, he promised something, and that's something he hasn't delivered on, and that's scamming. And we are not talking about small sums of money here. Now, in his defense, this likely wasn't a deliberate choice on his end. It was a charity live stream, and the money went to a good cause. It's not like he took all of it for himself. But there was still a lot of fans who donated money, hyped for a chapter of The Doors of Stone to be released to the public. This also excited a lot of fans in general, because after 10 years, there finally seemed to be development regarding the third book. But you also start to wonder, why is it so hard for him to release just a single chapter? I mean, he's been working on this book for years. It's been 11 years, for Christ's sakes. Don't tell me you don't have a chapter to show for it. And that's where my friend Betsy comes in. Well, friend or friend. I have no friends. Betty is Rothfuss's editor, and back in 2020, she said she hadn't seen a single word of The Doors of Stone. Now that's weird. She even went as far as to say she didn't think he'd written anything in 6 years. His own editor. My heart. Oh, my heart. And to this day, Rothfuss hasn't commented on any of these statements, which makes me fear that she might be right. But I'm not a man without empathy. I can understand that he might want to take a break once in a while. I mean, heck, he just wants to become Twitch famous. And that's definitely something I can relate to. I just want the views, I just want the subscribers, I just want to become YouTube strong. And 400,000 words is a lot. But Rothfuss isn't the only one feeling the toll of his tardiness. Betsy, his editor, and also owner of the publishing house Daw Books, saw her company slowly deteriorate. Rothfuss was contractually in with this publishing house, and they were expecting to rely on the revenue from his next book to keep afloat. Eventually though, they had to cut costs. Some authors didn't get their audiobook releases, and others were completely laid off. And eventually, Betsy was forced to sell the publishing house, which she had inherited as a family business. Now, all of a sudden, her statements make a little bit more sense. I mean, I would certainly be quite sour. Now, you can argue that none of this really is Rothfuss's responsibility, which, strictly speaking, it isn't, but you can't help but feeling bad for all the authors who lost their jobs, and of course, poor Betsy. But what's more, Rothfuss doesn't seem to be changing tune on this. Especially in more recent years, he has grown more and more angry and hateful towards the people asking him about Book 3. And in one tweet, he even compared people who ask about Book 3 to misogynists, flat earthers, and homophobes. Now, to be honest, he can delay the release of his book as much as he likes. That's his right. But what isn't okay is getting people to pay for something and then not deliver. I feel bad for all of those who donated and expected to be compensated. And his fan base largely reflects that, with a surprising amount of them turning against him recently because of this very incident. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Somewhere. Patrick Rothfuss is only 49, so he still has plenty of time to get himself together and get us that chapter, if only a little delayed. Now that's more than I can say for you George R. R. Martin fans. Yeah, my heart aches for you. My heart aches for myself. And no hate to Rothfuss. I'm sure deep down he is a decent guy. Just moral of the story is, don't pay him expecting him to keep his promises. If you like this video, check this one out. I picked it out for you especially, my dear, because it's great.